Hello, it's Ileana. I've joined the Scrap Stash Kit Club and I've pulled out some of my stash for the Surf's Up August 2014 kit, from which I'll make this layout, which is also my first ever process video. For inspiration, I'm using the front cover of this Scrap 365 magazine issue 20 by Birgit Koopsen, and I'm pulling out various papers from the Nitwit collection, Sandcastles paperback, as well as some other papers for layering. And having selected the Studio Calico print shop paper for my background, I'm now working on the layering. And that blue paper on the left, which I tuck in right there, is from my mum, and I think she may have created the graphic herself. The yellow paper underneath I'll eventually cut into, and that's from Basic Grey 6x6 Serenade collection. And that polka dot blue aqua paper is a freebie I've had in my collection for such a long time, so it's very pleasing to use it. Just committing some of that down with the ATG. And I'm going to cut that as well so as not to waste the part I don't see, and I'll use that bit on another layout. So here I go. Using now the Fiskars notebook punch just for some added interest, and I'll play around with these layers for a little bit until I get that right. So I've matted it on a light blue piece of cardstock. And a bit of blue mesh paper I've had for a long time. It's not real paper actually, I'm not quite sure. These doilies I play with for a while. Eventually I actually don't use the white one, simply because the picture's too big. Otherwise I'd like to have used the white one. To talk about the picture for a bit, it's of my older son Lorenz and me on a family day out at the Mayfield lavender fields nearby. And the story behind the title is that despite letting the boys choose their own crisps at the shops earlier that week, young Elias, who's 3, had a complete tantrum about not having Lorenz's crisp choice. But actually Lorenz kindly offered to share his ones and try to calm his brother down in a really sweet manner. And I was very pleased about that. So I wanted to give him the credit for being such a good peacemaker in that situation. So I found some French cutout quotes from the Kesi'art paperback with lovely sentiments about family in just the right colour, so I've gone with those for the picture embellishment and side border. And here I go, making that quote as a bit of an embellishment for the corner of the picture with the Hobbycraft Hearts border punch, and I'll be using that same punch right there on that yellow paper from the Nitwit collection, and making a side border with it. I tell you what, to all those who have gone before me with their process videos, I had no idea how much of a challenge they can be, but it's quite amazing what some people out there do, and trying to record yourself is hard enough, and then to narrate over the work you've done is also quite a challenge in itself. But at least in one respect, it can look like it was so easy to piece it all together. And here I go with the washi strips, that navy one from Hobbycraft and that blue one from a company called Arty Beanie, I think. And I'm making the glue look like it just goes so slickly on, and there was no effort there. But of course, what you don't see is all the mess all over my fingers. Such is the fun of doing my crafts. So here I go with that basket stamp, which my mum also gave me, and which I'm pretty determined to use for the visual reminder about the picnic we had. It actually proves fairly awkward, and you'll see me playing around with ideas as the video goes on. And I finally open up my bag of Pebbles Sun Yellow chips from 2008, which I recall my mum gave me years ago too. Eureka, I've used it. So I'm just setting about trying to select which of those chipboard pieces I'll actually use and try not to over ponder it. Actually, sometimes I find that I know I want to use something, maybe an embellishment or a bit of paper, but I don't quite know where at the time, so I'll just lay it in my line of sight and come back to it later on. And that's exactly what's happened with that picnic basket, incidentally. And in a moment I'll pull out a star, and I'll pull out a little circle heart and play around with some positioning and then come back to it. So now just popping everything to the side so that I can commit these little pieces to the central layout and that quote up there, and glue it all down onto my background paper before placing some embellishments on top. That's me just cutting off the retail strip, the Studio Calico retail strip, and swiftly gluing on that swirl and some of the other Pebbles Sun Yellow chips that I'd selected. So there we go. With that circle, I actually glue it on top of the picture, but I pull that picture from underneath it before the final layout, as I've decided it would look better that way. And back to that basket. I eventually do go with a lighter metallic blue cardstock because I'm trying to make this work with some washi tapes and what have you, and I just don't like the way it looks. So I move the washies over there to enhance that little cluster, and still trying to work on that circle heart. I'll go back to the basket. I even try stamping it directly on the photo, and that was a disaster. So here I am creating a new embellishment from the lighter cardstock, which matches up with the quote paper, and eventually there will be a circle where the doily is, which will balance the whole layout look, I think. I even try the basket on yellow, and no. So to make the basket pop a little bit, I've decided to go ahead and highlight it with my white Pentel Hybrid gel pen to make it pop just a little bit. And I wondered about lining the basket with, as it were, with the gold stamping from inside the discarded dark blue cardstock, but I decided to cut in some pattern paper instead, which I feel balances out the quote embellishment, which has the same paper in it. Excuse the background noise if you don't mind. My boys are playing with their train tracks, and I'm just trying to get this done, and it's proving to be the noisiest possible time I could have chosen, but I can't find any quiet time. Any 5 minutes of quiet doesn't exist in this house, so please just bear with me. And okay, so here I am with the scalpel blade on, cutting round all sorts of things to just get that basket lined, and sticking it up on embellishment tape. And then finally I find a place for that star, and again I kind of pop that up on some dimensional tape as well as the glue to the edge of the heart. And that's the home for the little circle heart there, right on the basket. And I'm just wondering what I'm going to do with these pretty little paper flowers, and I try them in the basket, but then I think, no, it's a picnic basket, and do they go over there, do they go over there? And eventually I actually end up sticking them on the swirl and putting a blue gem in the middle of one. Now, in the middle of making this layout, we actually went on a week's holiday where I found this second-hand Hero Art stamp, the striped circle, quite randomly, not in a craft store. So I figured I'd use it for a piece in the centre of the doily. And then I cut out some funky circle frames using a Cuttlebug die and swirl them around a bit to decorate. And I'll eventually add some white gel pen to those as well for added interest. But actually the video cuts out at the end, so you won't see all of that happening. I think it's just where the camera gets a little bit hot and overworked. So I've lost the end section, but you will see the stills and how I've added the title with gold glitter thickers, as well as some blue Pebbles mini ABC stickers and the yellow Peacemaker part of the title from the Prima marketing. And I've also sprayed a little bit of mist, actually, some blue mist, and added some blue gems elsewhere, as well as some home baked enamel dots, and just a little bit more washi in the polka dot yellow. And so finally I've also journaled and outlined some paper layers in the same chipped sapphire distress ink pen. And voila, there you are, my completed layout. I do hope you like. Thank you.